And exactly this is the reason why innovation, 70% of which, as what I've shown in a previous figure, is really driven by two things. The first one is understanding data, data science. Here is where artificial intelligence comes in. But the second concept is that you need to add entrepreneurship to it. Understand value creation. And if you can have this, kung meron po kayo nitong dalawang perspective na to, data science at saka entrepreneurship, you can be one of these guys. No? Most innovative company in the world known as the Gandalf, no? Google, Amazon, Netflix, DBS, Apple, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of you probably should this except for DBS, although I saw na merong kaninang galing sa Singapore. Lahat po yan were created by guys who has a very good understanding about data, has very good understanding about the IT, no? Lahat po yan, no? Si Bates and Green, when they created the page rank algorithm, doon nagsimula ang Yahoo. Si Bezos, who's an electrical engineer, okay, created currently the largest corporate companies in the world, the most valuable company in the world, Amazon. Netflix was created by Hastings, etc. No? Zuckerberg, Huffman, etc. Lahat po ito ay may ability na maintindihan ng data, may ability ng tungkol sa IT, and at the same time, meron silang entrepreneurship skill para magkuha ng mga value sa mga information na ito. And this has been their strength. No? The most valuable companies in the world were created by professionals who understands data science, who understands IT, okay, who understands emerging technology. And they are naturally researchers, intrinsically researchers. So, some examples po so that I can show you kung paano tinutulungan ng data science ng AI ang iba't ibang companies at government institutions. This is a work that we've done with Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. As you all know, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas is responsible for processing or looking at more than 500 companies every month, 500 financial institutions every month. And they are using roughly 8 times 5, 14 man hours per week. Okay, just to look at one account. And if there are 50 accounts, you are looking at 20,000 man hours per month. No? By using and combining artificial intelligence, okay, we were able to reduce yung time na ginugugol po nila para dito from 20,000 man hours to 11 minutes. Now, this is what the science, AI, ID can do. This is 99.9% process time reduction. But they mentioned that this is something that they should have more than a decade ago. No? This is an example of something that affects especially those who are in Metro Manila. Ang Gat Dam supplies more than 92% of the water consumption sa Metro Manila at all the way to Bulacan and Calabarzon actually. But the problem is that the technology or the system that they have before can only forecast it in 2 weeks time. By researching on AI and data science, we were able to extend this to 6 months. What is the difference if you can forecast something 6 weeks, 2 weeks to 6 months? You can do intervention. Napo-forecast ninyo kung kailangan pakawalan ng tubig or kailangan hindi kayo magpakawalan ng tubig. The magic number for Angat Dam is 180 meters. Too less and there is no water, there will be water shortage. Too high and there is too much rain. Ang mangyayari po dito, it can cause flash floods, killing lives, flooding, etc. So, again, data science and AI can help in doing this, and we were able to demonstrate this. Again, this is research. Research ko ang nag-drive nito. This is another work we have done with one of the biggest agricultural company in the country, more than 300 branches nationwide, and they are losing a lot of money because of the spoilage, because they are doing this for animal feeds, no? Nasisira po, nabubuwag kasi hindi nabibili. Created an AI to make sure that the moment na produce nila yung mga feeds na yun, nilagay sa store na yun, okay, supply and demand, essentially the problem, they will be able to have it na mabibili and specifically designed for each brand, no? Each branch. And the avoidance of spoilage allowed them to save an annual revenue of 100 million. Another example po, this is one of the largest manufacturing company in the world, and they are based in the Philippines. In fact, they produce more than 90% of 1 try to understand is how do you optimize this human-machine interaction. Kailangan mo ba dapat doblihin yung tao na ilalagay mo? Kasi most probably inaantok yung tao kapag ginagawa or ginagawa yung isang specific na equipment na yun. No? So in the process, we were able to save them 75 million of savings per 10 products, and they have hundreds of products in their company because of simply properly understanding machine-human interaction. This is a work that we've done with one of the largest pharmaceutical company in Asia, and they control also several hospitals. And as we all know, it is very important now that we understand yung hospital capacity. And the system that we developed for these guys, the research that we developed for these guys, is that we try to forecast how long will this individual stay in the hospital. And by doing so, mamamagdano po nila yung capacity nila, may improve nila yung quality ng service nila, at malalaman nila kung alin ilan yung kaya nila na i-accommodate na pasyente every now and then. So we saved them 15.3 million per annum for 10 diseases for the two hospitals, at least for the two hospitals that they control. Again, this is another research of contact tracing. Alam po natin na sinabi nga ni Sec Duque na may problema yung stay safe. Pinag-aralan po namin yun, and ang apat na cities po, Pasig, Valenzuela, Antipolo, Mandaluyong, we helped them come up with a contact tracing app that can pinpoint kung ano yung mga vulnerable na individuals. Hindi lamang po yun, kung sino yung mga super spreaders. Kung sino yung mga super spreaders, and therefore yung mga super spreaders can impact in our calculation can actually to some extent impact more than 800 individuals. Ito yung mga paikot-ikot galaw ng galaw, or sometimes ito yung mga cashier na pag hindi mo sila nalaman, ang dami nilang maapektuhan. So part po ng algorithm na ginawa namin yan, dineploy namin at ginagamit po ito ng apat na consortium cities. 5 na po actually ngayon kasama na ang Rizal. And artificial intelligence can be used in aging and drug discovery. So in this work, some of the things that we demonstrated is that you can in fact understand kung ano po. Nakita po naman natin yung vaccine from 15 years, na-reduce siya into normally approximately dati 10 to 15 years, na-reduce siya in less than a year. And this is because of data science. Now, this is because of the way we now understand data. Dito po sa mga research na ito, pinakita namin that the impact of the different drugs, for example, will be different for different nationality. So, isa po sa pinakita namin ng work dito sa article na ito. And in education, since a good portion of you here are educators, isa po sa ginagawa sa AIM ngayon ay we get projects. And everyone who will be who want to get projects for the students, they have to pay something like $10,000. Okay, and ito po yung mga companies that we work with. And all in all, dito po we work with more than 40 companies now, and this is just 2020, sorry. And the amount of revenue that we give to these companies is greater than $40 million. And this is the number not given by our students, but these are the numbers given by mostly the CFO, the chief financial officers of those companies. No? So, in art and creativity, it is also impacted by new technology. This is Fernando Amorsolo and my case, done by one student, combining this through what is referred to as a deep learning algorithm, kaya mo pong gumawa ng iba't ibang arts. And you can automatically colorize things, so it changes the way we think, we do things, even in arts, no? Or even colorize videos. Ang main point ko lamang po sa lahat ng mga example na ito, and dito ako pupunta sa National AI Roadmap, I'm looking at my time, I still have 7 minutes. Hindi na po natin may iwasan ng artificial intelligence sa panahon na to. It pervades our life. Lahat po ng mga areas na ito pinupuntahan niya. And kapag nag-invest tayo dito, clear ang return. At nakikita nyo rin po ang reason kung bakit mataas ang bayad sa mga data scientists. Ang mga estudyante po namin who works with these different companies as a student, during their thesis, they are hired mostly by those companies. At they normally increase their salary by a factor of 3 times, 3.5 times this year, after completing the degree programs, not aside from demand, it is really because of the value that they can give to the different companies. And this is, therefore, it is no surprise that the government around the world see artificial intelligence as a nation-defining capability. The same way that uh, previously, nakikita natin ang strength ng army or ang oil ang nag-define sa strength ng isang bansa. No? We are one of the first 50 who had a national AI roadmap. And we actually launched this AI roadmap in May 5, no, after the May 4th, Star Wars na plan. This is May 5. Ayaw natin kuhanin yung Star Wars na of the day. In 2021, this year, no, May 5, 2021. And one of the things that I would like to highlight, okay, in this AI roadmap, there are 42 strategic tasks. But one of the things that we are very excited is strategic task number 27, which is the creation of a national science center for AI research. What we want to establish here is to upskill and reskill the education of people on artificial intelligence in the entire country, help MSMEs, help the one-stop shop for micro, small, medium enterprises to go into that one. But at the one of the focus of this is really AI research, algorithmic innovations. No? Isa po yun sa pinaka gusto nating mangyari dahil if only by doing so, by publishing original works in research, then we become one of the legitimate center of excellence in the world. At yun po yung gusto natin na goal. No? Bigyan ng malalaking salary ang mga nandoon sa academics na gustong gumawa ng research comparable sa buong mundo. And this cannot be done by the government alone. So alam po namin that it will be subjected to salary standardization law at yung mga COA, mababagal na processes ng gobyerno, hindi po ito, it will in fact defeat the purpose of AI. The main purpose of AI is agility. Pero pag nilagay mo yan at tinali mo ng malaki sa gobyerno, mawawala yung concept ng agility. So the idea here is that this is for developmental po ang purpose nito. It's really an R&D for socio-economic needs. We are looking for R&D that will immediately benefit the industry and the greater good of the society, but we will spend a lot of time developing algorithms that are customized specifically for the Philippine setting but has a global impact. So these are just some of those that priority areas that this AI center will look at: agriculture, transportation, smart manufacturing, healthcare, and resilient technology. Again, these are chosen because these are very important for the Philippine setting. These are just some of the guys who help us during ito po, maraming pa po na kasama natin na nakausap natin sa development nitong AI roadmap together with these different institutions. Hulog government approach ang general na idea. And of course, sabi ko nga, importante dito na may mga enterprise na involved. No? So, we are raising a $10 million initially, and hopefully we will be able to get all of that soon, so that we can start this first quarter of next year. No? And all industry support, so ibig sabihin po, lahat ng pera dito ay galing sa industry, hindi po ito subject sa COA or salary standardization law. In fact, the salary of the personnel that will be hired here will be in dollars para po international po ang field ng ating institution. And we will be getting international scientists there. So as a proof of principle, kung paano po nag-merge in the last 2 minutes ang data science and entrepreneurship at saka yung emerging technology, na-create po yung school that I am heading currently now about 4 years ago. No? About this School of Innovation, Technology, and Entrepreneurship. Madali po sa amin na makakausap ng mga entrepreneurs dahil legendary po ang AIM pagdating sa entrepreneurs. No? Almost all these companies, they were product of AIM, more than 800 of them. Name a company, most probably they've been linked to AIM or in one way or another, or they grow their company as part of AIM. And ang idea po namin dito, pagsamasamahin namin ang mga geeks, ang mga IT na katulad ninyo, ng marami sa audience natin, mga entrepreneurs, at saka mga malilikot ang utak, mga innovators. and create that dito po ang Master of Science and Data Science namin, PhD in Data Science, and we are housing the fastest AI computer in the country, no? At 1.2 petaflops na feature po siya sa Asian Scientist, isa sa pinakamalakas na computer sa ASEAN, no? And uh, immediately nakakuha po siya ng mga supporters, including the Aboitiz. Kaya Aboitiz ang unang pangalan ng school namin. We get a $10 million Aboitiz donation from the Aboitiz group as an endowment. Most of the purpose of this really is to help our company. The students who would like to pursue MS Data Science or PhD in Data Science. So ito lang po yung ilan sa mga sponsors natin. At gusto ko pong i-end ang presentation ko dito sa picture na to. No? Makikita niyo po dito ang Ayala Group. Nandito po ang head ng Globe, nandito po ang head ng BPI, nasa likod ko po yung president ngayon ng BPI, nakita niyo po si Jasa, IMI, Ayala Health, etc. They listen to gigs. This is unimaginable when I completed my PhD in Physics degree, MS Physics degree, na makakausap natin at makikinig sa atin ang mga top of the mga top guys ng different companies. And this is what I would like to highlight po ngayon. Na nakikinig po sila ngayon dahil kailangan nila makinig sa emerging technology. So, proof of concept, okay, if you properly understand IT, data science, and have this entrepreneur's perspective, sa lalo na po sa mga estudyante natin ngayon, you can indeed increase your value. No? This is the numbers that we got from our MS Data Science students and MSIB students. Mainly the idea is that we make sure that they understand that data should be at the center of whatever things they do. No? Minsan po ang problema kasi hindi align ang deliverables ng industry, society, at academic na community. Society values impact and service. Industry value creation of critical. Academic publish or perish. No? But if you put data, they will be all aligned. So, and again, this is the main reason, no, kung bakit mas may agility kapag data yung nasa gitna. Opinion versus opinion, panalo ang mas malakas na boses. But if we have opinion versus data, nanalo ang data. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you po. Thank you, Monique.
Thank you so much, Mr. Monterola. Thank you. Um, for those questions are related to his presentation, we'll try our best to answer it in the Q&A tab or later in our panel discussion. So now, for the next presentation, it will be about practical data science. He's the founder of Future Generation International, a NUS Gold Medal award, a distinguished alumni Cesar E.A. Virata School of Business, UP Diliman, a distinguished alumni Divine Word Academy of Tagupan, Philippines. Please welcome Mr. Wilson Chua.
Thank you, Monique. Let me check my microphone. And can you see my slides? Let me check that you can see my slides.
We can hear you, but no slides yet.
Here you go. Can you see it now?
There, we can see your screen. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone, and I'm so honored to be speaking right after Dr. Chris Monterola and before Dr. Wilson Tan. I hope to be able to share my journey, no, in data science. So for me, data science is all about crunching numbers and telling a compelling story. We tell insightful stories that leads to action. Yan ang importante. Our stories from those data or numbers must lead to actions. So I first applied this to the problem that is dengue. And we zeroed in on using satellite data that was used for agriculture and repurposed that to identifying stagnant water. Why? Because that is where mosquitoes live. And so if you then pass on that data to the local government officials, they can then institute mosquito control operations that will keep the population of mosquitoes down. And since mosquitoes are the vector of to PhilHealth, they did not get it. No? If they were to hire, let's say AIM, and they pay them 1 million a month for a year, that is just 12 million. Our estimates show that PhilHealth could have saved up to 2 billion pesos a year from avoiding paying hospital fees for dengue alone. So, kulang doon eh. Anyway, after dengue, still on the subject of dengue, Zerolytics, a very good data analytics company, took this idea, adapted it, improved on it, and entered it into the NASA Global Space Challenge, where they won the first place. So you see the dichotomy. You have a Philippine government company that does not value the data, and you have NASA that gave them the first prize. So I leave you to analyze what happens after that. That is one of the key things for data scientists. As Dr. Monterola has said, not only do you stand to gain to earn more, but more importantly, you can drive impact. You can create meaning in your life and leave a legacy. Next, we went to the problem of the poor internet in the Philippines. No? What to do about that? So we decided to create a mobile app, speed test mobile app that we called projectpass.org. And this app measures Philippine internet signals and bandwidth. Armed with the past data, we created two dashboards showing the fastest network in each municipality down to the barangay level for both Wi-Fi and mobile internet. So, this is a win-win for all stakeholders. Subscribers use this dashboard when they need to choose a provider in a particular area. ISPs, cable TV operators, and even the large nationwide telcos use the dashboard to do QA or audit their field installations. We also supply the data to EICT
Sila
itself
tabi
when
kulong-kulong
they
ito nga.
wanted the cell site tower
Hindi
data.
natin na
And
system.
recently to
Bastog ka talaga.
DepEd and the City of Manila when they want to do bandwidth internet
Pengen ganda ni Manong
infrastructure
Patas.
analysis. So
Dapat
this is a
Manong Patas.
win-win for all. So today,
Pengen
I'm
nakapakasting mo.
excited to share with you how we can use data to fight COVID. These are some of the slides that we presented to
Ang
the
bibinarak.
ICTF as early as April of 2020.
Ya?
Something along the lines that Dr.
Kuya.
Monterola presented to you,
Ang
and that is
bibinar ko
now
na ang
being
biik.
used by the 5 areas. No?
Kinam.
And this is what we call
Awan lang ako ang
network
buti.
graph
Ikuha ko yan.
analytics. I'd like to introduce this concept. What you see now is a combination of circles and lines. In network graph analytics, these circles
Pwede kaming ganaw.
and lines are used to represent relationships. It could be used to show friendship
Pwede kaming
or
ganap na.
the spread of ideas
Karyaw,
from
dong.
one person to the next. Using the examples given by Dr. Monterola, how viruses spread from one person to another.
Pwede kaming.
But for today, we will use it to explain the spread of
Ang
COVID in the
bibinarak na
Philippines. So, for now, each of those circles represents not a person, but a city or a municipality. You will notice that the circles are of different sizes. The larger circles denote cities with larger population. Then we connect
Teka
each
raw.
of these cities together by their known travel paths. From one city to another, you will see lines connecting these two circles. We then give identification for some cities, A, B, C, D, and E. Now, look at this graph, network graph carefully. You will notice that some of the cities are more important than others. And one key way to look at it is by noticing how many links there are from one city to the others. I direct your attention to node B. So node B has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 links. So it has the highest number of links among the nodes in this visual. You know what that means? In network graph analytics, we call node 3 as something with a high degree centrality. In Dr. Monterola's term, this is a potential superspreader, as we will show later in our simulation. Next also, we like to see the high in-betweenness score. From one city going to another city, which other intermediate city do they need to pass through to get to the final destination? And again, in our illustration today, it is node B. It is what we call a node with high betweenness score in network graph parlance. Okay? So that is the theory. Now we show you the simulation. Suppose COVID hits node A. And suppose that every week, COVID will spread to the adjoining neighbor. Let us count how many weeks it will take COVID to spread from A to all of the cities in this illustration. So we count. First week, second week, third week, fourth week, fifth week, and sixth week. So remember that item. It takes 6 weeks to spread all over if it hits node A. Node A is relatively isolated. It does only one thing. Therefore, if the virus hits A, it spreads more slowly. But in contrast, let us see how the pandemic could spread even faster if it hits a high degree node like B. So again, we bring back the notation, and now we see that B is hit. Now, we now count how many weeks it gets to spread, because in the earlier scenario, it took 6 weeks. Now, in this scenario, it will take 1, 2, and 3. It will now take 3 weeks to spread. Therefore, if you were government, you would take pains to ensure that a highly connected location does not get COVID. Or if it does, the next possible step mitigation is to deploy blockage or movement control. So here, the government has to control only 3 routes, and it helps prevent the spread from B to A, C, D, and E. You see? So with that as a background, let's do a demo. Okay? The demo that I will be showing uses data from Facebook's Data for Good. I have access to this special data because of my work, research work with the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Administration. So the tool I'm sharing with you is free to use. Okay? So we get started, and then we drag the file that we want to analyze. There you go. And then we zoom out and go find the Philippines. So there you go. That's the Philippines. Now that we have the data in there, we would like to choose our visualization. For my purposes, I will choose the art. Okay? Because we want to show the travel art. Now we will specify the starting location denoted by latitude and longitude of the starting points. There you go. So starting latitude and starting longitude. Next, we will indicate the path. We know the start point. We also want to chart the end point. So here, we're inputting the end points. All the starting point will start with the color red, and all the ending points will color them green. This is a very busy visualization. Let's turn on 3D view. Okay, zoom in, and we can see all the travel patterns. This alone doesn't really give us much insight. So this is not the complete story. Now I will show you how by using filters we can craft a compelling story about the lockdowns in NCR. So here we'll limit all the lines to only those travels that started with NCR. And then we'd like to limit it further to show only those travels that actually increased So z-score is a mathematical concept of how many standard deviations from the median compared to pre-pandemic levels. So that's where you see that we're filtering it to those that are twice, three times, and four times more travel coming out of NCR during the period between the announcement of the lockdown and the actual lockdown itself. So you can see a lot of people escape Metro Manila. This was I think a uh, suboptimal decision by the national government. You see? And all of those places I'm now zooming into are places that later on got the Delta variant. Guess where they got it? This is a very compelling visual to show why, how public policy can be further improved. And expectedly, 1 month later, September 6, Dr. Jomar Fajardo Rabahante tweeted this. The only thing to notice is that COVID cases increased in all the regions from Metro Manila. And again, we now have the data to show where it came from, Metro Manila. So now we use the DOH data set. They update this every day. This was given in another talk for Cebu. Let's see how Cebu did in terms of the T3 concept. Testing, tracing, and treatment. So the first chart over here that you see is what happened. You will see two peaks for Cebu, and this is the x-axis is the date, 12-month period, ending October 1. Now let us show what the people did during that time. Kasi sabi nila, ay siguro because the spike could have been because pasaway ang mga tao. But in fact, Facebook's data for good show that people actually, majority actually, stayed at home. This is the the orange bar, more than pre-pandemic period. Up to 30, between 35% more people stayed at home. And if they travel shorter distances. This is the blue bar. Next, we look at the actual government performance in Cebu. So the red line is the test positivity rate. When it goes up, it tells you that the government was not testing enough people. For Cebu, despite except for the peak, it now went down to 11%, and this is as of October. I would assume it would have been lower by now. So, if so far as testing, Cebu government did a relatively better job. But in terms of tracing, we can show that they're absolutely dismal performance at 0.08% poor performance. In terms of treating, however, the medical community in and around Cebu did a fantastic job at 0.00% fatality. So here are the numbers that tell the story and that will create impact because these types of data, like what Dr. Monterola mentioned, in God we trust, all others bring data. Now there is something I think would create the most impact for COVID prevention. We note that there are studies that really said that, if you compare indoor transmission to outdoor transmission, indoor transmission is actually 18,700% higher than outdoor transmission. Now, why is this? My personal assumption is because this is in aircon environments. And you know what? In aircon environments, they close the windows and the doors. And what happens when you close all avenues of escape of air? The virus gets trapped inside, accumulates, and waits to infect its next victim. But that is just my assumption. Let us see what other people or scientific studies have done so far. And for that, we share with you a recent development. This is from Singapore. NUS and NTU scientists teamed up to to create a device to measure viral particles in the air. So this is what they call air surveillance approach. Because honestly, we cannot see visually with our eyes if whether or not there are viral particles in the air. So they developed this device, and I point out some interesting uh, uh, results from their study. They found that COVID is more prevalent in the air than on surfaces. Because remember, initially when COVID first struck, everybody was saying, oh, it's fomite, it's on the surfaces, it's on the droplets. No, 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 no. This study says it's suspended in the air. Shortcut, it's in the air. But not everyone can have a device like that. In the Philippines, who will have devices like that? So here's this simple idea garnered from another paper. Why don't we use carbon dioxide as the measure, as a proxy measure, to measure the risk of exposure? The idea is really simple. When you exhale the COVID virus, you also exhale carbon dioxide. If a room is not well ventilated, there will be an accumulation of carbon dioxide. And therefore, if you measure carbon dioxide and it is high, it means that there is a possibility of a high risk exposure to COVID as well for those specific indoor spaces. Now, the next question is, okay, but at what level would carbon dioxide be considered safe or unsafe? For this, we share with you a study shared to me by Dr. Antonio Dance of the HPAC, the Public Health Physicians Group. No? I just need to call your attention to the 1,000 ppm. So this study is about tuberculosis. They found that when a room has a carbon dioxide level reading of above 1,000 ppm, parts per million, TB is infectious. Now, all doctors agree, COVID is more infectious than TB. So we can right now use the 1,000 ppm as our trigger level. That is conservative for sure. At 1,000 ppm, if there's COVID virus in the air, there's a higher risk. Okay? In New Zealand, for the purposes of DepEd, arguing whether or not face-to-face, there is another study or rule from the New Zealand government for classrooms. They made a classification based on carbon dioxide. And here's the area that is safe. Anything below 1,000. Anything above 1,000 is unsafe. Now, carbon dioxide monitoring is now affordable because of advances in IoT. Again, I refer to Dr. Chris Monterola's presentation earlier on. IoT collects the data for us data scientists to analyze. No? And so there are devices like this. In Lazada, I think it's about 1,000 pesos only. It will measure not only carbon dioxide but also temperature and humidity. And we've set up a Google form where you can share your findings with us. And here's the URL. So we attempt to collect that, all those readings, and do something like this. This is already happening in Singapore. It's called spaceout.gov.sg, right? Each of these circles here represents a public space, usually a mall. If it's green, it means that there are less people here. For our dashboard, we will do something similar, but instead of the number of people, we will chart the carbon dioxide levels. Okay? As the location turns up red, less people will want to visit. And conversely, as the location turns green, more people will get comfortable to visit the place because people would avoid places that have high CO2. And then related to that, if you were the owner of the establishment, it would now incentivize you to put in air exchange filters, HEPA filters, and UVC lights to make your place, your indoor places safer. So I would expect that public policy would start to shift from mandating maximum occupancy number of people to maximum carbon dioxide ppm allowed. And in fact, that's already happening. No? This was shared to me by the speaker on day 2, Joey Gorango. He said, Wilson, it's already happening. The Department of Labor, as early as March of this year, already mandated ventilation regulation guidelines. And I read Section B, air-conditioned spaces. Number 2, you must run your ventilation system for at least 30 minutes before and after spaces are occupied. And number 6, frequently open the windows, doors, and other openings to supplement the mechanical ventilation system to achieve dilution. So everybody, I think, is in agreement. Well-ventilated spaces are less riskier for the spread of COVID. And as a side note, here we're launching today on y4it uh, our page for fresh air initiative. We call this the healthy indoor spaces. Please naman, paki-like nyo naman. No? When you like it, you will be notified of any exciting developments. Like for one of our members already went to Cebu, Ayala Mall, basement parking level, and took the carbon dioxide readings. And guess what? 6,000 parts per million. 6,000. All right, and with that, I end my presentation. I hope I didn't bore you to death. Here's my QR code in case you want to help me improve further on my presentation skills. Thank you. Monique, back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson Chua. Interesting topic about practical data science. Great. Okay. So now, for any questions related to Mr. Chua's presentation, we'll try our best to answer it in the Q&A tab and maybe also later in our panel discussion. Alright. Okay, so our next speaker is an associate professor at the Department of Computer Science of UP Diliman. His current research interests include embedded network systems, Internet of Things, software-defined networks, as well as machine learning techniques applied to computer networks. Here to talk about how research is a career and the development of research as a career, Dr. Wilson Chan.
Okay, thanks. May screen na ba ako? Okay na ba?
Yes, you can hear
Yes.
me.
Okay, hi everyone. Gising pa ba kayo mga students? Ang dami nating tao dito. 1,000. Good, good? Nakapag-react pa sila? I think so. Anyway, so again, good morning to everyone. Today, I am here to talk to you about a career path an opportunity that is relatively unexplored and relatively rarely taken, especially dito sa bansa natin. A research career path. But first, sino ba ako na nagkasalita dito? Ako si Wilson. I am an associate professor over at the Department of Computer Science of UP Diliman. I am or was a project leader of research projects funded by DOST, Bicari, UPD, some private companies, okay? I was also a collaborator in projects of DOST as actually very timely ni Sir Wilson Chua yung previous speaker. Around 2019, May 2019, kausap ko siya with some DOST ASCII people. Hindi ko alam kung naalala niya kami. Kasama ko si Bani noon, sir. So, anyway, before that, so hindi naman ako project leader lagi. Before that, I also worked as a researcher. Someone who codes stuff for several projects, lalo na nung nasa graduate school. Both for DOST projects nga, and funding bodies here in the Philippines and in the UK. Okay, so yeah, I guess you could say that I have some experience in a research-related career path. My goal this morning is to take you into a tour of sorts, so pasyal lang tayo, into what such a career path looks like, who isn't a good